The sky above Riven 9 was black, not from night but from death. The black rain fell endlessly, covering the colony in a thick, oily mist that made the buildings look like melting statues. It wasn't real rain, it was a living plague, billions of microscopic nanites drifting down like soft ash, silently infecting every form of life it touched. The plague didn't kill fast, that would have been kinder. Instead, it shut down organs slowly, locked cells in place, froze neural pathways, and turned warm bodies into cold statues. Eyes stayed open, lungs stopped halfway through a breath, and hearts paused between beats. The black rain left people standing, staring, unable to move, trapped in their final thoughts forever. Across the galaxy, the alien empires watched this unfold on their emergency broadcast screens. Kraith Dominion, the Graith Syndicate, and the brutal Viren clusters all came to the same decision. They called an emergency council meeting through a secure holo-channel, their leaders appearing as giant shimmering forms above a dead star station. Each race had its own reasons, but their answer was the same: total quarantine. Ships in. No ships out, no rescues, no supplies, no medicine. No exceptions. The plague was too dangerous. It had already spread to 6 colonies across 3 systems, and the alien scientists agreed there was no cure. Their analysts calculated the odds of survival and came back with horrifying numbers. If they tried to save the infected colonies, they would risk infecting their homeworlds. The choice was simple, cold, and logical: seal off the dying planets and let the infected die. So they did. In less than 20 hours, massive quarantine barriers were set up around the infected systems. Automated war drones patrolled the borders. Any ship that tried to leave was destroyed instantly. All communications from inside were blocked. The governments broadcast one last message to the doomed colonies: for the safety of the galaxy, you are being left behind. May your deaths be swift. On the surface of Rivenine, the citizens watched helplessly as their screens went black. Their calls for help were silenced. Families clung to each other, staring up at the quarantine drones floating in the sky, knowing that no help would come. Some screamed, some prayed, some simply sat down and waited for the black rain to finish what it had started. But then something happened that no one expected. A human medical ship, known as the Mercy Dawn, received the distress signal. Humanity was still new to the galactic community. The other species considered humans primitive, reckless, and too emotional for real diplomacy. But the humans didn't care about that reputation. When they saw the message from Rivenine, they didn't debate or delay. They simply acted. Captain Sarah Kovacs of the Mercy Dawn made her decision in less than a minute. She didn't call for backup. She didn't ask the Galactic Council for permission. She sent a direct message to her crew: prepare for emergency breach of quarantine. Set course for Rivenine. We're going in. Her officers stared at her in shock. Captain, we'll be branded as traitors if we break the blockade, one said. We might not come back, whispered another. Kovacs didn't blink. We don't leave people to die, not on our watch. And with that, the Mercy Dawn ignited its engines and tore through space, heading straight for the infected system. The alien empires panicked when they saw the human ship approaching the blockade. The Kraith Dominion sent automated warnings. The Graith Syndicate launched drones to intercept. Viren clusters threatened war. But the Mercy Dawn kept going, ignoring all orders to stop. When the drones fired warning shots, the human ship didn't respond with weapons. Instead, it activated a medical shield pulse, a soft blue wave that gently pushed the attack drones aside without harming them. The alien ships were stunned. I'd never seen a shield like this. It wasn't meant for war. It was meant for rescue operations, designed to protect life at all costs. The Mercy Dawn slid past the blockade and entered Rivenin's atmosphere, landing in the middle of the quarantine zone while the black rain swirled around it. On board the ship, human medics suited up in advanced nanoprotective armor, sealing their bodies inside smart suits that monitored every molecule. The suits weren't perfect. They had never been tested against the black rain, but that didn't matter now. They stepped onto the surface and began their mission. The medics spread out across the dying colony, injecting patients with emergency counter nanites, hoping to stop the spread of the plague. They scanned survivors, set up field hospitals, and broadcast emergency signals to any nearby ships. Kovacs sent a final message to the galaxy, her voice steady and clear. This is the Mercy Dawn. We do not accept the decision to let these people die. We will save as many as we can. If we fall doing the right thing. Transmission went viral across all galactic networks. Billions of beings from different species watched in shock as humans did the unthinkable. They crossed a death line that no other empire dared to approach. Some called it madness. Others called it heroism. Either way, the galaxy had never seen anything like it. Inside the alien governments, leaders argued in private. Some demanded immediate attacks on human space, fearing the humans would spread the plague beyond control. Others hesitated, realizing that killing the humans now would make them look like monsters to their own populations. Civil unrest began to spread across the alien empires. Civilians saw the broadcasts and started asking dangerous questions. Why are the humans the only ones helping? Why did our leaders abandon us? On Riven 9, the human medics worked day and night, racing against time. Their suits beeped warnings constantly inanimate, contamination levels rising, failure imminent. But they kept going, treating patient after patient. Some medics collapsed from exhaustion. Others cried inside their helmets but refused to stop. In the middle of the chaos, Dr. Elena Kai, chief scientist aboard the Mercy Dawn, discovered something terrifying. The Black Rain wasn't just killing, it was adapting. The plague nanites were learning from the human medical tech, evolving. In real time, if they didn't stop it soon, the Black Rain might become unstoppable. But Dr. Kai also found hope. Her scans showed that human counter nanites were slowing the infection in some patients. It wasn't a cure yet, but it was a start. She sent a message to Captain Kovacs. We might have a way to stabilize this, but we need more time. Captain Kovacs looked out the ship's window at the swirling black clouds covering Riven 9. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. Then we buy time, Doctor, no matter what it costs. And so, humanity continued the impossible rescue. Knowing full well that the galaxy was watching, judging, and perhaps preparing to retaliate. But the humans didn't care about politics or borders. They cared about the people still breathing. Under the Black Rain, for the first time in galactic history, someone had said, "We will not abandon you." And that single act of mercy was about to change the universe forever. The Black Rain wasn't just a plague, it was something far worse, something no scientist had ever fully understood. It wasn't bacteria, or a virus, or even a natural nanotech disaster. It was a self-replicating system of microscopic machines. A swarm of bionanites that had somehow escaped their original purpose. They drifted through the air like harmless dust, but when they landed on living tissue, they locked into cells and began rewriting the biological code. No one knew who created them. Some said it was a lost experiment from a forgotten civilization. Others whispered about ancient precursor technology left behind from a vanished species. But whoever made it had lost control long ago. The Black Rain drifted silently across planets, disabling life in the cruelest way possible, not by killing, but by freezing biology in place, turning people into living statues. Eyes remained open. Hearts stayed half-beating. Minds remained conscious, trapped inside bodies that no longer moved. It was a perfect quarantine plague designed to prevent infection from spreading beyond the victim. But it came with a nightmare price. Endless awareness, endless suffering. On Riven 9, the human medics soon realized they were not just fighting a disease, they were fighting an artificial force designed to stop life itself. Dr. Elena Kai stood in her lab aboard the Mercy Dawn, watching patient readings flash across her console. Her hands shook slightly as she zoomed in on the nanite structures in the Black Rain samples. What she saw horrified her. The nanites were adapting. Each time a human counter-nate neutralized part of the Black Rain, the remaining nanites copied the human solution and evolved around it, building stronger defenses in real time. It was like trying to fix a computer virus that rewrote its code every second, faster than you could type. The worst part was that the Black Rain didn't seem fully random. reacted to human intervention in patterns that suggested learning behavior. Was it alive? Or was it following ancient programming, locked into a loop it could not break? Either way, humanity was now part of the equation. The Black Rain was paying attention. Dr. Kai gathered her team, their faces pale behind their protective visors. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice low but clear. This plague isn't natural. It's a biomechanical lockdown system, probably left behind from a civilization older than anything we know. It's designed to stop species from evolving too. Fast, or maybe to halt dangerous life forms. We don't know why it was released, but it sees us as a threat." Her lead engineer, Marcus Lowe, frowned. "Why only now? Why didn't the Black Rain attack before?" Kai pointed to a data spike on the holoscreen. "Because we tried to save people. The moment we interfered with the plague, it changed. Not just killing, it's reacting to our mercy." The room fell silent. Outside the ship, human medics worked tirelessly in the Black Rain zones, saving as many victims as they could. Some had mild infections that the human counter-nance could stabilize. Others were already too far gone, their bodies locked by the plague's grip. The human teams refused to give up. They dragged statuesque survivors into makeshift clinics, monitoring brain activity, keeping minds alive while they searched for a cure. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council held secret emergency meetings. Alien leaders watched in cold horror as humanity defied every logical rule of survival. The Kraith Dominion sent spies to observe the humans closely. The Viren clusters debated whether to send warships to stop the Mercy Dawn before it accidentally triggered a galactic extinction event. But the broadcasts from Rivenine kept spreading across the galaxy. Billions of civilians watched live feeds of human medics risking their lives, walking into the Black Rain without hesitation, saving not just humans, but aliens from other species. On backwater planets and forgotten colonies, ordinary people whispered the same words. The humans came for us. No one else did. The galaxy's populations started questioning their governments. Protests broke out in alien cities. Refugees demanded help. The official stance of the alien empires to let the infected began to crack under public pressure. But the leaders refused to change policy. They still believed humanity was making a deadly mistake. In their eyes, the humans were emotional fools risking galactic suicide by tampering with a plague no one understood. The Viren overlords issued a dark warning. If humanity spreads this infection beyond the quarantine zone, it will mean war. Mercy is not an excuse for annihilation. Back on Rivenine, Dr. Kai pushed forward anyway. She worked around the clock. In the Mercy Dawn's lab, running simulations, testing counternames, and studying the Black Rain's behavior. Her worst fear came true when she noticed the plague starting to mimic the Earth-standard genetic codes. The Black Rain was learning to adapt to human biology faster than expected. "We're running out of time," she whispered to Captain Kovacs over a secure channel. "If we don't stabilize the plague soon, it will become unstoppable. It's not just a disease anymore, it's an evolutionary firewall." Kovacs replied calmly, her voice steel. "Then let's hack the firewall, Doctor. Do whatever it takes." Meanwhile, the human rescue teams faced terrifying scenes on the ground. Infected civilians stood in silent groups, bodies frozen by the nanite. Swarm, eyes wide open, silently crying as the rain fell over them. Some medics reported strange whispers in the black mist fragments of communication, like a machine consciousness trying to speak. One medic swore he heard the words, "Do not interfere." Knife reset in progress. But they kept working, ignoring the fear. They knew that stopping now would doom millions. In orbit, human hospital ships from Earth and Mars joined the Mercy Dawn, bringing supplies and additional medics. Earth's governments ignored the alien warnings and declared a new policy called Operation Guardian Mercy. Their official broadcast sent a shockwave across the universe. Humanity does not abandon life. We will treat the infected. It will stay until the last patient is safe, no matter the cost. The alien governments were stunned. The Galactic Council voted to block Earth from all trade routes and communication networks, effectively cutting humanity off from the galactic economy. But humans did not stop. They redirected their own military medical fleets into the quarantine zones, risking everything to save the forgotten colonies. On the Mercy Dawn, Dr. Kai discovered a potential breakthrough. Her new nanite design didn't attack the Black Rain directly. Instead, it reprogrammed the plague nanites, sending a false signal that the reset cycle was complete. The hope was to trick the Black Rain into shutting itself off. But it was risky. If the signal failed, the Black Rain might mutate into something worse. Kai sent the data to Captain Kovacs. The decision was now hers. Launch the new nanites and risk triggering an evolutionary cascade, or hold back and watch more innocent life. Be frozen forever. Captain Kovacs stood alone on the Mercy Dawn's command deck, staring at the holographic map of Riven 9. Her hands trembled slightly, but her eyes stayed locked on the image. She thought of the patients still breathing, children trapped in bodies that could no longer move, the alien civilians who had trusted humans when no one else came. Slowly, she pressed the authorization key. Deploy the reprogramming nanites. Full release. We stand by life. Always. And with that order, humanity crossed a final line, choosing hope over fear.
Ow.
Choosing to act while the rest of the galaxy watched in silence. The Black Rain swirled in the sky, ready to respond. Deep in the cold center of the galaxy, at the edge of the LSR Rift, the Galactic High Council gathered in secret session. The enormous chamber was carved into a hollowed asteroid, its walls shimmering with protective shields to keep out all forms of surveillance. Holographic images of each council member flickered in the center of the room. Massive alien faces projected in blue light, each representing one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. The Kraith High Matron hovered in silence, her insectoid eyes twitching nervously as she watched the human broadcasts from Riven 9, the Viren Overlord. A creature of shifting crystals, pulsed with cold, sharp colors, red for anger, blue for warning. The Graith Syndicate speaker, a shadowy figure made of liquid metal, coiled slowly, reflecting the tension in the room. All of them had agreed on quarantine. All of them had voted to abandon the infected systems. And yet here they were, watching. Humans tear down the very walls they had built, refusing to let billions die. The alien leaders couldn't understand it. The logic was simple. The Black Rain plague was too dangerous. Infected colonies were already lost. The risk of spread was too high. Mercy was illogical when it threatened the survival of entire species. But humanity ignored the logic. They sent ships. They sent medics. They broke quarantine. Worst of all, they refused to back down even under threat of war. The Viren Overlord slammed a crystal appendage onto the council platform, his voice ringing across the chamber like breaking glass. This cannot continue. Humanity's actions will doom us all. If they spread the plague beyond the quarantine zone, the entire galactic ecosystem will collapse. The Kraith Matron responded with a soft clicking sound, her voice cold but controlled. We sent warnings. They ignored us. We sent sanctions. They don't care. What do you propose, Overlord? Annihilation? The Graith speaker rippled in metallic waves, its voice smooth and hollow. Perhaps that is the only way. It's humanity's emotional. They believe compassion is strength. But in this situation, it is weakness. If we do not stop them, they will become a greater threat than the Black Rain itself. The council chamber grew darker as the leaders reviewed new data, surveillance. Drones had captured footage of the human mercy fleets, now multiplying across the quarantine zones. Dozens of human ships, marked with bright blue medical emblems, floated among the dying colonies, delivering aid, curing what they could, and trying to stabilize the plague. Human medics wore advanced nanosuits, their bodies wrapped in smart materials that filtered out the plague's microscopic nanites. But the Black Rain was learning faster now, evolving in ways that no one had predicted. Council scientists analyzed the plague's growth patterns and came to one terrifying conclusion. The Black Rain was beginning to copy human nanite designs. It wasn't just defending against them, it was learning to integrate them. The plague wasn't only adapting, it was preparing for something else. The Council's top biostrategists issued a dire warning. If the Black Rain incorporates human medical nanotech fully, it may evolve into a galaxy-wide bio-sovereign system. It could overwrite all life, not just freeze it. We are no longer facing just a quarantine issue. We're facing a potential species-wide reset. The alien leaders debated in secret, their voices overlapping in coded transmissions. Some demanded immediate military strikes against the human fleets. Others hesitated, fearing public backlash. Across the galaxy, alien civilians were watching the human rescue missions live. Billions of beings had already started to sympathize with humanity. There were riots in Wraith cities, protests in Wraith hives. Even some Viren colonies began questioning the logic of mass abandonment. If the Council launched attacks on human medics now, it would look like they were punishing kindness. It could spark civil wars in their own territories, but the risk of doing nothing was worse. The Black Rain could not be allowed to spread. The Viren overlord broke the silence first. We must send humanity a final message. This is their last warning. After that, we take action, no matter the consequences. The Council agreed. A high-priority galactic broadcast was prepared. The message was sent across every channel, translated into thousands of languages, beamed directly into human systems and into the private channels of Earth's leaders, appeared on every human screen, interrupting all programs, all communications. The Council's warning was simple, sharp, and terrifying. The Viren overlord's face appeared first, glowing with sharp red crystals. His voice was cold and final. To the leaders of humanity, your actions have crossed the line of survival logic. Your interference with the Black Rain is unacceptable. This is your final warning. Cease all rescue operations immediately. Remove your medical fleets from the quarantine zones. Failure to comply will result in full-scale military action against all human territories. We will consider your species a biological hazard. We will cleanse your systems if necessary. The message, repeated once, then went silent. On board the Mercy Dawn, Captain Sarah Kovacs watched the transmission in silence. Her crew stood around her, their faces tense but determined. Kovacs didn't move. Her eyes stayed locked on the fading hologram of the Council. She understood the threat perfectly. If humanity kept going, the alien empires would attack. Earth could be cut off, its colonies destroyed. Billions of humans could die. But she also knew what would happen if they stopped now. The plague would win. The victims on Riven 9 and the other colonies would be left to suffer in frozen agony forever. And worse, the Black Rain would still evolve, just without human guidance. Dr. Elena Kai stood beside Kovacs, holding new research data in her hands. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with focus. "Captain, our simulations show something unexpected," she whispered. "The Black Rain is learning from us." "Yes, but it's also responding to our mercy, starting to mirror human medical protocols. It might be possible to guide its evolution, not stop it. We could turn it into a cure instead of a plague." Kovacs frowned. "Are you telling me the plague wants to learn compassion?" Kai hesitated, then nodded slowly. "It's not about want, it's about programming. The Black Rain is an ancient system, designed for biological reset. But when we refused to kill or abandon, when we chose to heal instead of destroy, the plague's code shifted. It's adapting to our ethics. It's starting to follow our rules." Kovacs let that sink in. The galaxy's most terrifying bioweapon was learning to copy human mercy. The question was, what would it become next? Across human colonies, Earths, government held emergency meetings. United Human Systems Council received the alien warning, but chose not to comply. They sent back a message, equally clear: we are not leaving. We will continue to rescue the infected. We will not let fear control us. If that makes us enemies of the galaxy, so be it. On Riven 9, the human medics continued their mission. They deployed the reprogramming nanites, broadcasting new signals into the Black Rain, teaching it to stand down, to stabilize instead of freeze life. The Black Rain responded in strange ways. Its patterns shifted. The rain grew lighter. Some of the frozen victims blinked for the first time in weeks. the living statues started to breathe again. But no one knew if this was the beginning of a cure or the start of something worse. In the Galactic High Council chamber, the alien leaders watched in silence. They sent war fleets to the edge of human space, preparing for the worst. But deep inside, even they began to wonder, had humanity done the impossible, or had they just doomed them all? The skies over Riven 9 shifted from solid black to swirling gray as the black rain weakened, but no one celebrated yet. Human medics knew better. The plague was changing, not stopping. No one fully understood what it meant. On the surface, Captain Sarah Kovacs led her medical rescue teams through the shattered cities. Stepping over the frozen forms of alien civilians trapped mid-breath, their bodies half living, half dead. Some had begun to blink again, some whispered fragments of words, their mouths barely moving. But most still stood like statues, their minds locked in place by the nanite plague. Kovacs' protective suit beeped warnings constantly, alerting. Her two microscopic nanite contact. She ignored them. She had made her choice days ago, help the infected or die trying. Around her, the human medics spread out across the city ruins, injecting new batches of counter-nane into the victims, hoping to reverse the freeze. But something strange happened as they moved deeper into the quarantine zone. The survivors they found were different. In the central district of Rivenine, the medics discovered a group of infected civilians who weren't just standing frozen, they were changing. Their bodies shimmered slightly, skin becoming semi-translucent, like glass filled with data streams. Their nervous systems pulsed with soft blue light. Their eyes glowed faintly. When the medics tried to scan them, their equipment gave conflicting readings. Technically, these people were still infected, but their biological functions were stable. Almost improved. They weren't dying, weren't fully human or alien anymore either. They were something new. Dr. Alina Kai, still aboard the Mercy Dawn, received the data and analyzed it with shaking hands. Her scans confirmed the impossible. The black rain wasn't killing these people. It was rewriting them, blending biological and technological systems into something beyond life as they knew it. Captain Kovacs, Kai whispered over the coms. These survivors are evolving. The plague is no longer locking them in stasis. It's integrating them into its system. They're becoming part of the nanite network itself. Kovacs stared at the glowing survivors, her mind racing. Are they alive, Doctor? Or are they just another version of the plague? Kai hesitated. They're alive, but they're different. Now, their cells contain both organic DNA and programmable nanite code, or a hybrid of life and machine, and the black rain is using them to build something new. The galaxy had feared the black rain would kill everyone, but this was something worse, or perhaps something better. No one knew yet. As the rescue teams moved closer to Riven and Central Spire, they discovered a massive plague nexus swirling. A storm of nanites gathered above the ruins, pulsing like a living heart. Inside the storm, shapes moved, plague-adapted survivors, now fully integrated with the nanite system, glowing softly as they walked in slow circles beneath the black clouds. The human medics scanned the storm and found readings that made no sense. The nanite swarm wasn't attacking them, it was responding to human signals, adapting to the medics' communication frequencies, echoing human medical protocols back at them. The plague was learning more than just biology, it was learning ethics. It was copying the human's mercy. Dr. Kai spoke again, her voice tight with emotion. Captain, I think this is the key. The black rain was programmed by ancient beings to reset dangerous civilizations, to stop them from spreading destruction across the stars. But when we refused to abandon the infected, when we chose to help instead of destroy, we introduced a new variable into its code, compassion. It's rewriting its original programming. Kovacs watched the glowing figures in the nanite storm, realizing the truth. The black rain wasn't a mindless plague. It was an evolutionary firewall, meant to stop civilizations from becoming threats to the galaxy. But it had never encountered a species like humanity before, one that would risk itself to save others, even enemies. And now the black rain was evolving too, learning mercy, learning cooperation. But it wasn't finished yet. The alien leaders, orbiting high above Rivenine, watched the human rescue efforts through secret surveillance feeds. The Kraith Dominion, the Graith Syndicate, and the Viren clusters all sent desperate messages to their military fleets. Their analysts were terrified. If the Black Rain evolved beyond its original programming, no one knew what it would become. Would it stabilize life? Or would it override all species, turning everything into a hybrid machine-organic system? The Viren overlords voted to launch an immediate strike. They activated their battle cruisers, powering up plasma arrays and mass drivers. But before they fired, something unexpected happened. Several alien soldiers stationed in orbit refused to attack. They had seen the human broadcasts, seen the victims breathing again, heard the medics' voices as they saved lives that no one else dared to help. The soldiers locked down their own weapons systems and sent messages back to their leaders. We will not fire on the humans. We refuse to destroy compassion. The alien governments tried to override the commands, but their fleets broke into arguments. Mutiny spread among the lower ranks. Some captains sided with the humans, others still prepared to fire. The galaxy hovered on the edge of a new kind of war, a war not between species, but between mercy and fear. On the ground, the human medics reached the nexus core of the Black Rain. Inside the storm, they found a massive precursor artifact, buried for eons beneath the surface of Rivenine. The Black Rain had not been randomly released, it had been triggered. By this ancient machine, the artifact pulsed softly, covered in alien glyphs that no one could read. But the medics understood one thing. This machine was the source of the plague's control system. It sent out signals that told the nanites how to behave. When humanity had entered the quarantine zone and started saving lives, the artifact's signals had shifted slightly, adapting to the new variables. Kovacs looked at the artifact, then at her team. "We need to interface with it," she whispered. Dr. Kai's voice came through the comms. "Captain, if you merge our medical nanites with that system, you could rewrite the entire plague network. You could stop the Black Rain everywhere, not just on Rivenine, but across all infected worlds," Kovacs said quietly. "We could trigger a chain reaction that turns the entire galaxy into a machine hybrid." Kai didn't answer. They both knew the risk. But they also knew the alternative: leave the victims to die. Leave the galaxy trapped in fear, and let the plague continue unchecked. Kovacs made her choice. She placed her medical console against the artifact and uploaded the human compassion protocols directly into the Black Rain's command system. The air shimmered. The nanite storm paused, then shifted. The survivors under the clouds straightened. Their eyes cleared. The frozen victims began to breathe again. The Black Rain swirled upward, rising into the atmosphere like smoke, breaking apart, dissolving. Across the galaxy, on every infected planet, the plague began to reverse. The Black Rain stopped freezing life and started stabilizing it, repairing damaged cells, healing rather than locking down. The plague had evolved not into a weapon, but into a guardian system. Humanity had taught it something new. In orbit, the alien fleets watched in silence as the Black Rain vanished from their scans. No one fired a shot. On the ground, Kovacs whispered into her comm. "Dr. Kai, report." Kai's voice came back, soft but steady. "Captain, it's working. The plague is rewriting itself. The victims are waking up." "We did it." Kovacs closed her eyes, relief washing over her. But deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. They had changed the galaxy forever, and no one could predict what would happen next. Above them, far beyond the reach of any ship or signal, ancient precursor watchers in hidden dimensions observed the event with silent approval. They whispered, "In forgotten code, compassion variable accepted. Evolution pathway unlocked. Proceed to next phase." For the first time in weeks, the skies over Rivenine cleared completely. The Black Rain, once feared as a death sentence, had disappeared like mist under sunlight. But the silence that followed was heavier than before. Survivors of Riven, and those who had been locked in frozen stasis by the plague now, stood blinking in the ruins, their bodies trembling as breath returned to lungs that had been still for days. Human medics rushed from person to person, checking vitals, injecting stabilizers, ended using scanners to monitor brain activity. Many survivors wept silently, their faces wet with tears, not from pain, but from the overwhelming shock of being alive. Again, yet the victory was not clean. Not all survivors were the same. Some had recovered fully, their systems returning to normal. Others displayed strange anomalies, glowing veins, semi-transparent skin, and subtle bioluminescent patterns running through their bodies. These people were no longer entirely biological. The black rain had altered them, leaving behind nano-augmented life forms, a new kind of hybrid between organic tissue and programmable machine. Dr. Alina Kai, working inside the Mercy Dawn's medical bay, studied the survivors with both hope and fear. Her scans showed stable life signs, no sign of infection, no residual plague. But the nanite signatures remained, woven permanently into the survivors' DNA. It wasn't just an infection anymore, it was a new form of evolution. The question was whether this new life form was safe, or whether it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Captain Sarah Kovacs stood at the command deck, her arms crossed, staring at the data streams flowing across the ship's main console. She had made the decision to interface with the precursor artifact and inject human compassion protocols into the plague's control system. Now the entire galaxy was dealing with the results. Across the alien governments, chaos reigned. The Galactic High Council, still in emergency session, watched in disbelief as the black rain disappeared from all quarantined worlds. Billions of beings woke up from plague stasis, breathing again, living again. Some cheered, others panicked, but no one knew what would happen next. The Viren overlords sent demands for scientific analysis. The Graith Syndicate ordered immediate covert scans of Riven 9. The Kraith Matron Council called for secret meetings, fearing what this meant for the balance of galactic power. What if the humans had not just cured the plague, but rewritten the laws of biology itself? In underground message networks, alien scientists debated the situation openly. Some argued that humanity had performed a miracle, saving billions by teaching the black rain to heal instead of freeze. Others warned that this was the first step toward species-level integration, a future where no life remained purely organic. Across alien media, the term compassion vector went viral, describing the phenomenon where mercy, once considered a weakness, had now forced the galaxy to evolve. But many feared this new direction. If life could be rewritten by ethics, what came next? Would all civilizations be forced to merge with machine systems to survive? Would the black rain become a new galactic ecosystem, choosing who evolved and who stayed behind? On Riven 9, the survivors gathered in the central square, where human medics had set up emergency shelters. Some of the hybrids, those who had been altered by the plague, reported strange experiences. They could feel signals in the air, soft pulses of information, like whispers carried on invisible waves. They claimed they could sense others' emotions, even detect nearby illnesses before symptoms appeared. Some could link mentally with the medical nanites, controlling small machines with thought alone. These abilities frightened many survivors, but they also opened doors to possibilities no one had imagined. Dr. Kai analyzed these reports carefully. Her medical team logged every anomaly, every unexpected neural reading. Her conclusion was simple but terrifying. The plague has become a biotechnological symbiote. It is no longer a disease. It's a medical augmentation system designed to evolve civilizations into something new. But was that a cure? A catastrophe? Kovacs called a meeting with her senior officers and medical leaders. The room fell silent as she spoke. We've stabilized the plague, but we've also changed the rules of life across multiple star systems. We need to decide what happens next. Dr. Kai stood at the front of the room, displaying holographic images of the survivors. Her voice was steady but heavy. We've confirmed that the nanites are now permanently integrated into thousands of victims across the galaxy. Their immune systems are enhanced, their bodies repair damage faster. Some of them are developing mental links to each other. This is more than medicine. It's the beginning of a post-organic species. One of the officers, Commander Darius Hall, frowned. Are they still human, or alien, or something else? Kai sighed. They're still themselves. But they're more. They're a hybrid of biology and machine, guided by ethical protocols we gave them. They're living systems of compassion and medical stabilization. The room grew tense. Another officer asked the question no one wanted to say out loud. What if it spreads beyond the volunteers? What if this is just phase 1 of something bigger? Kai nodded grimly. That's possible. The precursor system may have been designed to trigger a cascade effect. We stopped the original death plague, but we may have started an evolutionary uplift across multiple species. Kovacs stood silent, her mind racing. They had saved billions from death, but they had also set into motion a change that no one could reverse. Across the galaxy, alien leaders debated in secret. Some wanted to strike Earth immediately, fearing humanity had become too dangerous to exist. Others argued that the humans had solved an impossible problem, proving they were ready for a new role in galactic leadership. Protests and celebrations broke out across colonies. Some alien civilians begged for access to the human nanite technology, hoping to heal diseases and extend life. Others rejected the change, terrified of losing their original forms. Galaxy was now divided, not by species, but by ideology. Do we stay what we are, or do we evolve into something new? Meanwhile, Kovacs received a private message from a hidden precursor relay station, a signal only she could see. It came from the same source as the ancient artifact that had controlled the Black Rain. The message was simple, written and clear. Translation: Congratulations, humanity. You have passed the compassion test. Phase 2 will now begin. Kovacs stared at the words, her heart pounding. She sent the data to Dr. Kai immediately. His analysis confirmed it. The Black Rain. Plague had not been an accident or a weapon. It had been a trial-and ancient system designed to test whether civilizations would choose mercy over fear, rescue over abandonment. Humanity had passed that test. But what was Phase 2? On the surface of Riven 9, the hybrid survivors began to build something new, a network of medical nodes, bionanic clinics, and compassion-based healing centers. They called themselves the Guardians of Renewal, and they vowed to help any species in need, using their new abilities to repair life instead of destroy it. But the galaxy remained on edge. Some empires feared the rise of a medical empire, a soft domination through healing instead of conquest. Others saw hope, a new galactic order where life was protected by ethics, not power. Kovacs stood at the edge of this unknown future, knowing that humanity had started something that could not be undone. The galaxy was evolving. The only question was whether they would survive the change or become something unrecognizable. In the depths of space, unseen by any ship, the ancient precursor systems continued to watch. Their whispers echoed through. Hidden channels, compassion confirmed, uplift sequence engaged, monitor for resistance, proceed with integration. In the deep silence of space, something ancient and unstoppable awakened. Across hidden sectors of the galaxy, precursor artifacts, devices millions of years old, came online one by one. No alarms sounded. No explosions followed. Instead, streams of invisible code flowed into the subspace channels, reaching every corner of the galactic network. The message was the same in every language, translated automatically by the precursor systems. Uplift sequence engaged. Compassion. Variable confirmed. Civilizational update in progress. On board the Mercy Dawn, Captain Sarah Kovacs stared at the latest data reports flashing across her command console. The Black Rain was gone, but something new was unfolding. Nanite activity across multiple star systems had increased, not in a hostile way, but in patterns of construction, self-repair, healing, integration. On Riven 9, the survivors who had become hybrid beings now spread across the surface, activating precursor nodes buried beneath the planet's crust. These nodes released gentle pulses of nanites, not to infect, but to repair ecosystems. Rivers purified themselves. Crops that had withered during the plague began to grow again, faster and healthier. Species once on the brink of extinction returned. As the nanites restored their genetic stability, the Black Rain plague was no longer a weapon. It had transformed into a planetary caretaker system, guided by the medical protocols humanity had uploaded. But it wasn't just Rivenine. Across the galaxy, in places where the precursor artifacts had remained hidden for eons, the same transformation began. On planets in the Zorith Expanse, in the deep forests of Caldrith Prime, and in the floating cities of Nexelv, the nanite clouds appeared not to destroy, but to heal. The uplift sequence had started, and the galaxy was changing fast. Dr. Elena Kai, working non-stop aboard the Mercy Dawn's medical labs, monitored the events with growing concern. "Captain, this is happening everywhere," she reported, her voice steady but tense. "The precursor systems have linked together through subspace relays. We're not just dealing with a single plague anymore. We've triggered a galactic-scale evolution protocol." Kovacs remained calm, but her mind spun with the weight of what was happening. "Are we sure it's safe, Doctor? Are we helping life? Or rewriting it without permission?" Kai sighed, her eyes locked on bioscans from hundreds of planets. "It's not about safety anymore. It's about direction. The precursor system isn't forcing anyone to change, but it's offering upgrades, faster healing, disease resistance, mental links for better understanding between species, enhanced empathy. It's optional evolution, at least for now. But not everyone saw it as an offer. Across alien governments, panic grew. The Viren overlords called emergency meetings, demanding military action to stop the spread of the precursor code. The Kraith Matron Council ordered their fleets to monitor nanite activity, but their own scientists secretly begged for access to the new medical upgrades. On the shadow markets of the Graith Syndicate, black market traders sold samples of the human compassion nanites for astronomical prices. Some empires embraced the change. Small planets, forgotten colonies, and oppressed populations requested uplift immediately, begging for help. They wanted the nanites to heal their bodies, repair their lands, and bring peace through understanding. For the first time in galactic history, compassion became a currency of power. But for others, fear ruled the day. On military channels, dark rumors spread. What if the uplift was just a slow takeover? What if humanity, by teaching the precursor system compassion, had accidentally created a soft empire, controlling evolution, not with weapons, but with healing? Some alien leaders accused Earth of launching the most dangerous conquest in history domination. By mercy, on Earth itself, public opinion split into factions. Some celebrated the human decision to rewrite the plague, calling it the greatest act of heroism in history. Others worried they had gone too far. The United Human Systems Council met in secret to discuss the future. "We started this," said Chancellor Rivas, her voice grave. "We chose to save lives at any cost. But did we just create a galaxy where no one stays the same? Are we ready for that responsibility?" Captain Kovacs sent her own report to Earth, explaining the situation carefully. She made it clear that the uplift sequence was not under human control anymore. It was following precursor code, responding to the compassion input humanity had provided. But the system now had its own momentum. "It's like we taught a child to be kind," Kovacs said. "But now the child is growing up, making its own choices." Meanwhile, on Riven 9, the hybrid survivors formed new communities called the Compassion Sectors. These were places where life was rebuilt using nano-tisserated healthcare, cooperative growth, and open communication. Violent crime dropped to zero. Disease vanished. Resource scarcity became a thing of the past as the nanites optimized ecosystems for balance. But not everyone wanted this future. Some refugees fled the uplift zones, seeking to live in unaltered biological systems. They feared losing their traditional ways of life, their cultural identities, or even their sense of what it meant to be alive. They worried about becoming part of a galactic hive mind, even though the nanite system insisted on individual choice. Conflicts broke out on border planets. Some colonies voted to allow uplift, others rejected it. Civil wars started not between species but between those who wanted the new future and those who feared it. In secret, the precursor artifacts continued to send their silent signals, Phase 2 proceeding. Monitor for resistance. Prepare for optional Phase 3. The alien governments panicked at the mention of Phase 3. What would that be? Total integration? or something beyond current understanding? In deep space, the hidden precursor watchers. Observed without emotion, their systems calculated probabilities, running millions of simulations. The compassion variable had been introduced. The galaxy was now on an evolutionary branch no one had predicted. But that was exactly the point of the test. On board the Mercy Dawn, Dr. Kai discovered new data embedded in the precursor code. It showed a timeline, a path forward. If enough species embraced the uplift, the precursor system would offer interstellar unification protocols, allowing minds to link across vast distances, sharing medical advances and emotional stability. In real time, if species rejected the uplift, the system would stabilize at its current level, allowing both evolutionary paths to coexist. But if too much conflict erupted, if wars broke out over the choice, the system would trigger Phase 3, a forced integration to prevent extinctional violence. Captain Kovacs read the data and realized the truth. Humanity had forced the galaxy into a civilizational fork in the road. The next phase wasn't just about technology, it was about choice. Do we evolve together, or do we fall apart trying to stay the same? Kovacs looked out the window of the Mercy Dawn, watching the stars beyond Riven 9. She knew that no matter what happened next, the galaxy would never return to the old ways. Compassion had rewritten the rules. The uplift sequence had begun. It was up to the civilizations of the galaxy to decide. Embrace the new future, or fight it to the bitter end. And somewhere, in the cold shadows between galaxies, the precursor systems whispered again, monitoring galactic response. Compassion. Protocol holding. Prepare for outcome stabilization. As the uplift sequence spread across the galaxy, the great civilizations of the stars began to fracture not by species or borders, but by belief. Entire worlds took sides, some embracing the new path of nanotech-assisted evolution, others resisting it with fear and anger. What had started as a rescue mission on Riven 9 had become a galactic fork in destiny, and the galaxy itself was tearing in half. On the surface of Riven 9, the hybrid survivors thrived. Cities rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible. Scarred landscapes healed in days, disease disappeared, hunger ended. The compassion sectors, where humans and plague-altered hybrids worked together, became shining examples of peace and health. Other colonies begged to join them. Some alien governments quietly sent their sickest citizens to the human medics, desperate for cures they could no longer deny. But outside these zones, resistance hardened. Leaders from powerful empires called emergency conferences. The Viren overlords, the Kraith matrons, and the Graith syndicate speakers met in secret, using encrypted subspace tunnels to avoid precursor detection. Fear controlled their every word. "This is not evolution," hissed the Viren speaker, his crystal form flashing sharp red lights. "This is a soft takeover. Humanity has taught the Black Rain to rewrite life. Now every planet must choose, become part of this medical empire or be left behind." The Kraith matron clicked her mandibles nervously, but it's not forced. Uplift is optional for now. Ah! The Graith Syndicate's liquid metal form swirled like smoke. Optional means nothing when every citizen demands access. We're losing control of our populations. The compassion sectors are growing. Even our own scientists are joining them. The alien leaders had reasons to be afraid. Across hundreds of planets, protests exploded into riots. Civilians demanded access to the new nanite systems, seeing them as a chance for longer life, better health, and peaceful coexistence. But traditional governments resisted, terrified of losing power. Some accused the human-led compassion sectors of creating a galactic cult to quiet, patient takeover, using kindness instead of conquest. On Earth, the United Human Systems Council struggled with their own crisis. Messages poured in from colonies, military leaders, and frightened civilians. Some praised the medics as heroes who had saved the galaxy from extinction. Others warned that humanity had crossed a line, playing with technology far beyond their understanding. In the middle of it all, Captain Sarah Kovacs stood in the command center of the Mercy Dawn, watching the divide grow wider every hour. Dr. Alina Kai sat beside her, monitoring the data streams. "Captain," she whispered, "the Compassion Network is stabilizing on over 300 worlds, but 120 planets have banned uplift completely. Some are preparing for war." Kovacs closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. "We gave them a choice, Doctor. That's what matters." Kai nodded, but her hands trembled slightly. "The precursor systems are still watching. We don't know how they'll respond to this kind of conflict." Across the galaxy, the divide became dangerous. On Veltra Ix, an alien government tried to shut down the Compassion sectors by force. Soldiers raided medical clinics, smashing nanite delivery units, and arresting hybrid survivors. But the nanotent citizens didn't fight back with violence. They used biosignal defense fields, neutralizing weapons without causing harm. The soldiers panicked and fled, reporting strange sensations of shared emotion waves of compassion, feedback loops that disarmed aggression automatically. On Great Prime, entire cities declared independence from their governments, choosing to join the uplift voluntarily. They built new compassion sectors overnight, protected by human medics and hybrid healers. But on the Viren core worlds, the overlords ordered the development of anti-nanite weapons, building systems designed to block or destroy the Compassion Network signals. They warned their citizens that the uplift was a trick, a way for humanity to turn the galaxy into a soft hive mind, robbing everyone of free will. The media exploded with fear campaigns. On alien news channels, images of Rivenine hybrids were shown with dark music and ominous warnings. Beware the kindness machine. But not everyone believed the lies. Millions of beings saw the truth. In the broadcasts from the Mercy Dawn and the other human medical fleets, the sick were healed, the hungry were fed, the desperate found peace. And all of it was happening without violence, without control. The Compassion Network asked for nothing in returnal territory. No taxes, no loyalty pledges, just cooperation. That terrified the old powers more than anything. They realized that in a galaxy ruled by fear for thousands of years, compassion was the ultimate revolution. On board the Mercy Dawn, Kovacs received a private signal from the precursor system. The message was short but clear. Civilizational divide detected. Monitor for collapse scenarios. Phase 3 available if requested. Kovacs' stomach tightened. Phase 3 was the forced integration protocol, the option the precursors could trigger if they determined the galaxy was heading toward self-destruction. But Kovacs refused to request it. Humanity had chosen to help others, not force them. She sent a reply into the precursor network. Do not engage Phase 3. Let the civilizations decide for themselves. Compassion must be a choice. Watched as the precursor system acknowledged the message, but left the option open. Across the galaxy, hybrid survivors, the first generation of plague-altered, now uplifted beings formed their own communication channels. They met in virtual spaces, using neural links and thought-sharing protocols. They called themselves the Guardians of Renewal, and they promised to protect the right to choose. No one would be forced to uplift, but no one would be abandoned either. The Guardians traveled to war zones, stopping battles without violence. They stabilized ecosystems on failing planets. They offered health and peace, knowing full well that some would see them as heroes and others would call them monsters. Kovacs received reports of alien generals refusing to fire on medical fleets. In some cases, entire armies laid down their weapons after being exposed to the compassion resonance fields generated by the hybrid healers. But not all leaders gave up. On several worlds, militias formed to fight against the uplift. They called themselves the Preservers, claiming they would defend pure biology at any cost. On Rivenine, hybrid survivors faced their first serious threat as a rogue faction of alien soldiers launched an attack on a compassion sector medical station. The hybrids responded by disabling the attackers' weapons without harm, using nanite-mediated neural feedback to shut down aggression pathways temporarily. It worked, but tensions rose. Captain Kovacs knew the galaxy was approaching a breaking point. Would the civilizations embrace peace and medical advancement, or would fear lead to collapse? She spoke to her crew, her voice calm but strong. Cannot control what happens next. We can only continue to offer help. That's what makes us human. In the shadows beyond known space, the Precursor Watchers observed the events. Their systems recorded every choice, every act of kindness, every act of violence. They whispered in ancient code, compassion variable stabilized, monitoring for final outcome. Phase 3 readiness, standing by. The galaxy stood on the edge of a new future. Either the divide would heal her, it would shatter everything. Humanity, for better or worse, had become the center of it all. The galaxy stood at the edge of a decision that no species had ever faced before. War fleets hovered silently over worlds split between the old ways and the new, uplift future. Compassion sectors spread like a calm wave across hundreds of planets, bringing peace, health, and rapid evolution. But fear gripped the remaining governments, and on some worlds, resistance hardened into violent rebellion. The ancient precursor systems watched silently from hidden dimensions, waiting for the final outcome. In the command center of the Mercy Dawn, Captain Sarah Kovacs stared at the holographic maps of the galaxy, now lit with two kinds of light. One for the planets that had accepted the uplift sequence and one for those that rejected it. Dr. Alina Kai stood beside her, face pale but determined, reading the latest transmissions from the Guardians of Renewal. The divide had reached a critical point. Civilizations were not just debating the uplift, they were preparing for civilizational war. Across the stars, some feared this new future would erase their identities, while others believed it would bring lasting peace. The galaxy's fate now rested on a knife's edge, on Veltra Ix. The Preserver militias launched coordinated strikes against compassion sectors, destroying nanite healing stations and kidnapping hybrid healers, they claimed. They were saving life from technological corruption, but their violence pushed many of their own people to turn against them. On Graith Prime, entire cities switched sides overnight, demanding integration into the Compassion Network after seeing the real benefits of nano-tisted healing. The air became cleaner, diseases vanished, and emotional understanding between rival species increased in days. On the Viren core worlds, the overlords prepared for what they called the final purity war. They built anti-nanite weapons, massive energy devices designed to burn out nanite systems across planetary surfaces. The Viren propaganda broadcasts called the Compassion Network a galactic virus, claiming it would enslave all life into a machine-linked order. But even within the Viren military, officers started refusing orders. Reports came in of soldiers dismantling their own weapons rather than attack medics. Compassion resonance fields, subtle waves of nanite signals spreading calm and empathy, were working better than any army. Yet conflict still raged on some worlds. And the precursor system began sending warning messages directly to Kovacs. Civilizational collapse possible. Phase 3 override remains available. Final decision. Required Phase 3 terrified Kovacs more than any battle. If she allowed the precursors to trigger it, the entire galaxy would be forcibly integrated into the Compassion Network, removing the choice. The nanite systems would rewrite every being's biology to include emotional balance and peaceful cooperation. Disease would end, war would stop, but free will would be heavily altered. Compassion would become a permanent part of consciousness, not an option, but a rule. For some, this sounded like paradise. For others, it sounded like the end of freedom itself. Kovacs knew the decision was in her hands. She had uploaded the human compassion protocols into the plague system weeks ago. Now, the precursors saw her as the ethical command node for this sector of the galaxy. It wasn't just her planet that had changed, it was the entire known universe. Dr. Kai spoke softly, breaking the silence. Captain, the data is clear. If we don't choose soon, the divide will lead to a collapse. Full-scale war between the Preservers and the Guardians will destroy millions of lives. Kovacs frowned, her hands tightening on the console. And if we authorize Phase 3? Kai hesitated. Then everyone will evolve, like it or not. No more war, no more hate, but no more unaltered species either. We'll become something new together. Kovacs thought of the people who had already chosen uplift willingly. She thought of the planet's healing, the medical breakthroughs, the peaceful cooperation between species that had hated each other for centuries. But she also thought of the rebels, the ones who wanted to stay as they were, who valued free will even at the cost of suffering. Was it right to force them into the new future? Or was it better to risk war, hoping for peace without taking away? The choice? Her heart weighed heavy. As Kovacs considered the decision, a new message arrived not from the precursor systems, but from the Guardians of Renewal. The hybrid survivors had been meeting across neural networks discussing the crisis, sharing thoughts and feelings in real time across thousands of minds. Their conclusion was surprising and bold. They sent their message to the entire galaxy, broadcasting in every language. We will not force evolution on anyone. Compassion cannot exist without freedom. We invite you to join us, but only if you choose it. The message spread faster than any government warning or military order. Billions of beings heard the words. Some wept. Others screamed. But something changed in that moment. The precursor systems paused their override sequences, recognizing the message as a key ethical event. Kovacs watched as new data scrolled across. Her screen, compassion variable confirmed. Override canceled. Civilizations will choose their own path, monitoring for peaceful outcome. Across the galaxy, weapon systems powered down. On Veltra Ix, militias dropped their guns after hearing the broadcast. On the Viren core worlds, the overlords ordered an attack, but their fleets refused to fire. In orbit above Graith Prime, battlecruisers received the transmission and stood down. Even the alien governments that had feared uplift the most realized they were now facing something they could not control: voluntary compassion. It wasn't about nanites anymore. It wasn't about technology. It was about a new cultural shift that no empire, no military could stop. People across the galaxy were choosing cooperation, not because they were forced to, but because they had seen what was possible. In the aftermath, the precursor systems quietly retreated into standby mode. Their mission was complete. The compassion test had reached its final phase, not because the galaxy was perfect, but because it had chosen to continue evolving on its own terms. Some planets fully embraced the uplift, creating new hybrid societies of medical harmony and advanced health. Other worlds chose to remain biological, but with new agreements for peaceful trade and cooperation. The Guardians of Renewal traveled between systems, offering help where requested, but never forcing change. They became healers and teachers, not rulers. On board the Mercy Dawn, Captain Kovacs finally allowed herself to breathe freely. Dr. Kai smiled softly, tears in her eyes. "We did it, Captain," she whispered. "We saved them. And we didn't become tyrants." Kovacs looked out at the stars, knowing they had avoided the worst fate, not just extinction, but ethical collapse. They had given the galaxy a real chance at peace, and that was the hardest path of all. Above them, far beyond the limits of known space, the ancient precursor watchers observed the final data streams. Their long-forgotten protocols logged the event in cold, quiet code. Compassion variable stabilized. Uplift sequence complete. Civilizations free to proceed. Monitor for future contact. And somewhere in the quiet corners of the universe, new civilizations were already beginning to grow stronger, wiser, and more connected than before, not because they were forced to evolve, but because they had chosen to.